it doesn't matter whether it's in the form of a manu pool or a small outdoor splash pool, or whether it's for swimming lanes, it's all the same thing. You just look at the volume of water and you basically get a development contribution based on the number of cubes of water.
Cubes or squares?
Squares.
Squeeze,
Okay, all right.
squeeze it in this case.
We're
In
gonna have their
basic
heads
terms,
above
yes,
water.
but that's put alongside what we need in the network to make sure that we're catering for the majority of our communities, and then the features go on top of that water space and how they are used for different requirements. But when we're looking at growth, it is based on the amount of water space that's available.
Well, that's basically how DCs work. Yeah.
Not through the chair, not for transport, they don't.
Well, it's all depends on the level of service, but like a library or court space, it's done on a X amount per people, and anything that catches you up to that level of service is one thing, and anything additional is growth.
Can I clarify my reason for being somewhat incredulous? That the Te Manotaki project provides greater quantity of library space, greater quality of library space, provides far more square metres of library space per person in Tauranga than anything that the council has done and is likely to ever do in one step. And we can't get development contributions. So it just defies belief to me that we can have one approach for a pool or aquatic centre and another completely different approach for the civic centre.
Through the chair, would have to bring back to you the detail around the calculation for tomorrow.
Yeah.
It has changed over time, so
If you could bring both those, please, yeah, that'd be great.
Is it, sorry, my understanding that the reason that there's no development contributions is because it was going to be funded through IFF, and now that the IFF is off the table, that potentially it will go back to development contributions?
that was part of the original reason, but the amount of actual development contributions has reduced over time as well. So I need to just bring back that calculation.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Have we got any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Baker.
Kind of similar vein to that question that I put through via email. I'm just curious to know from an engagement and community point of view, with all the work that we had done and drawn from different feasibility surveys, quoted with community, etc. How different was that information, if at all, to what we received through the survey that we had done recently? Curious to know if we kind of are landing in the same place.
Kia ora koutou. Through the chair, we do have plan to speak about that survey in a little while, a little bit more extensively, but just quickly on that. So this latest survey that we had was the first time that we've gone out to the community at large with specific questions on the aquatic facility. However, over the last 3 LTPs, the plans were included in those consultation documents, so we did get feedback. They just weren't specific consultation questions. That feedback, particularly over the last 2 LTPs, did have quite similar themes, namely around supportive of an new aquatic facility, also wanting to preserve existing aquatic facilities like Automoto, and then also a desire for a community pool. But it is quite limited. There were probably, I think it was under 100 responses in that time, so not nearly as extensive as this latest round.
Choice. So we're going to dive into this a bit later, are we, in terms of...
Yeah, sorry,
Okay. I'll say
we've got that, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, your weight as well?
I was just going to actually ask in terms of the scope, and we're talking about the basic option, but that includes a spa and fitness centre. Was that because that which is not what the survey suggested was a priority? So I was just going to ask, why was that put up as the basic option, that the fitness centre was included?
Great question. And the rationale for adding some of those other elements to the facility, including the fitness centre, the cafe, and obviously learn to swim programs, is that they drive revenue. that helps offset the cost of running the facility. So that's where in the business case there was looking at how much that EBITDA model is and what it's going to be. If you don't have those things sitting in the model, then that reduces the amount of revenue coming in, increases the subsidy that's required from council.
So you're suggesting that a fitness centre at the Aquatic Centre is going to be a revenue earner over and above CapEx running costs? Because that's,
Yes.
and you have asked other fitness centres and pools around Tauranga and they do make profits?
Well, we operate ClubFit gyms at both Baywave and Greerton, and our gym at certainly at Baywave does generate a good return for us, yes.
And Greerton?
Greerton, it's quite small, so it helps to offset the cost, but it does.
So it's break even?
No, it's better than break even.
A question for Paul. Just diving into the DCs a bit more, and this will bring light to Glenn's heart. If we were to keep the Otomotai pool and make a decision for that, would that significantly increase the DC's collectible over Memorial Pool?
So if we were to...
If we were to make a decision to keep Otomotai pool, would that then I'm just guessing that there's an offset if we were to close Otomotai around that.
In terms of growth, we'd have to reassess it. It will be calculated based on the catchment for that pool, so I'm just not sure whether that would be applicable to come across. And the other thing to recognise is that the DCs, we've already collected 1.2 million of DCs for a facility in that area. They would need to be refunded under the DC policy.
Oh, sorry. We're continuing on with Memorial Pool, but if we didn't shut Otomotai, would that then, because obviously then you've got a much greater space.
I would have to confirm in terms of what it would do in terms of numbers for.
Okay, no, that's
Nelson,
It would definitely mean that we're obviously providing more for growth because we're going to have more water capacity in the network. But as far as what the number goes, that's something that we'd need to come back on. But yeah, your point around adding to growth is correct.
Yeah. Councillor Crowther.
I think the Mayor brought up Otomotai. I guess I'm wanting clarity in terms of our long-term plan. What years of operational funding are included in the plan for Otomotai? How much in the way of renewals are included? And is there any change officially, and by the council itself, to the was it December 2023 motion, which said that after a period of time Otomotai would not be operational? I know there's been lots of discussions. There was a working group. We're waiting to hear back on the geotech, but has there been any official change which has reinstated Otomotai into the network in the long term?
The latest resolution, council resolution that's on the table is that we would establish the working group and bring back a decision to the new council. So that's the process that we're in at the moment, waiting for the geotech to come. So that's the commitment that's there at the moment.
In terms of in the plan itself?
No renewals or anything in the long-term plan?
No, there's no renewals on there at the moment of any note.
And what about operating costs for how long into the plan are the OPEX covered?
I'd have to check on that. We think it was probably put in until the memorial facility was due to open, but we need to check that.
That's correct. That's a memorial.
That was my understanding. Yep. Thank you.
All right, we might just move on. Obviously, we can still continue to ask questions, but I think we've probably come to the end of those ones. I'll now go to 13.4 Memorial Park Aquatic Centre Supplementary Report, and I'll give the opportunity for Alison and Chad potentially to maybe speak a little bit to this report. Thank you.
Thank you. We've covered some of the things I was going to go through, but I'll pull out some of the key points, particularly now we're back in public arena as well. So as I've said, I've managed aquatic centres for over 20 years, and I've been on many national advisory and peer facility groups around the country. And as a result of that, I understand how important it is to get an aquatics facility that gets the balance right and caters for the majority of our community. We feel really passionately that the current design at Memorial Park does just do that, a balance for everyone and for the majority. As we know, there's been a historic underspend on community facilities over the years, and that our existing facilities are at capacity. So across the city, there's a major gap in the leisure hydrotherapy and learn to swim, as well as the provision for water sports, particularly those that need the deep water. Sport NZ aquatic strategy talks really clearly around the deficit around the country around leisure, play and relaxation and hydrotherapy, and that's exactly what we see in our network. Baywave is the only pool in the city that has deep water, so that can to work for water polo, synchronised swimming, and training and competition. As we've talked about, the aquatic centre as it is in the current design achieves the levels of service and fills those gaps in the network, and growth funding can be applied by doing the design as a whole. I guess I just really want to reiterate some of the discussions that we've had previously around successful aquatic centres provide for physical and social hubs for our community as a whole and for all ages and abilities. There will be, and there is, a small percentage of our community that do need elite and high performance training, and obviously we really want to see people performing well and moving and coming out of Tauranga as those elite athletes. The point is, though, that our community is largely made up of a diverse range of user groups with really diverse needs from aquatic centre. So young children learning to swim need warm temperature and a shallow depth. People of all ages who want to train for fitness and competition need a cooler temperature and deep water. But our older population or those with disabilities need warm temperature and medium depth, as well as provision for easy access in and around the facility. Our children, youth and families in our community want to socialise, have fun and be physically active, but they need warmer temperatures, varying depths and appropriate water play features for that to happen. As well as the expertise that we've got around the council table and with Bay Venue staff, we've been working with the experts such as Visitor Solutions and Architecture HDT to make sure that we've got the best possible outcome for our community as a whole. Bringing Apollo on as the appointed contractor, we've delivered many, and they have delivered many of the recent and successful aquatic centres across New Zealand. And working with Apollo, we've identified more than $20 million in savings across the project. Something that I think I've probably been known to say a lot is that as a city or in a country, we can't afford to be all things to all people. But I generally feel like the design that we've got for Memorial Park Aquatic Centre does enable us to be all things for most people, and that would be a really good outcome for our community. So over to Jeff.
It's a great summary, Alison. Kia ora koutou. It's great to have the opportunity to speak on behalf of Bay Venues. So we've heard from members of the community, we've had surveys, we've had all those sorts of things, but I think it's useful for you to hear from us as the operators of our 5 aquatic facilities in the city. We've got a team of dedicated aquatic professionals, and this is what they do day in, day out, and running the pools, but also balancing up the needs of the community from our high performance squads through to our aquafit, older people that are in there through to our Learn to Swim program. So our team are managing with that on a daily basis. What you've heard from the community through the survey, which we'll talk about shortly, and the public forum earlier in the week, it really just highlights that we're short on facilities. And that's not just in aquatics, but that's what we're here to talk about today. So how do we get through that? There's no news in this. It's pretty common knowledge that that's where we're at. And as a city, we've underinvested in community facilities despite having rapid growth. The demand for space in our facilities is at a point where we are at capacity at peak times. You look at Baywave at times and you'd struggle to find space to put anyone else in those pools. We also currently have very little resilience in the network. So if Baywave is closed for maintenance or if there is a major issue of some sort, we've got 3 smaller community pools. They're all 50 to 70 years old. And just for example, the existing Memorial Pool opened in 1955. The population of the city at that stage was about 7,500 people. So things have moved on a little bit since then. Those older facilities are failing and barely fit for purpose in some cases. Our newest aquatic facility, Baywave, as it is, that's nearly 2 decades old. It might seem new, but it's nearly 20 and does need reinvestment. And again, when it opened in 2005, since then the population's grown by about 50% in the city, about 50,000 more people living here. So clearly the situation is not of this council's making, but it does need to be addressed. And we can't solve all of the problems, but we need to make a start. The question really is not that we need more facilities. I think we all appreciate that, and in this case being the Aquatic Centre, but it's how best we deliver that. And there's always going to be different perspectives around that, and that's really valuable, and we need to balance those views out. Ultimately, council and with Bay Venues, we're tasked with delivering the best outcomes for the wider community in the most cost-effective way. And due to limited funding, that means we have to prioritise where our investment goes, and we know that those hard decisions are in front of you as a council. So with the Aquatic Centre, the key question is what we can afford and how do we ensure that the investment gives us the best bang for our buck. And alongside council, you've heard a bit about the network approach. We're very big on making sure that we try and balance up the network. It's old and tired in a lot of areas, and so it does take a bit of work for us to do that. And it won't be perfect on our first step, but we have to try and drive the best value out of that, not just for now, but thinking about future generations as well. This project in particular has been in the planning phase since 2016, so it's been a while, and it's going to be more than a decade before any new pool opens. And there's been a lot of thinking and planning that's gone into that, and you heard some of that from the consultants a little earlier. So what we've come up with is based on the research and expert advice that we've had to date, and the mix of facilities that we've included, as Alison talked about, gives us the best value we think for the community for the cost. There's been a lot of engagement, and we've talked a bit about that already. In addition to the survey, we've also have regular user forums with all of the aquatic users, and so every year we've done that, and we've given you some notes, I think, in the background reading around that. And yeah, there is always the question around whether we need a 50-metre pool or not, but equally I think the community and our key users have come to the understanding that we need to make some steps forward. Just kind of figure out where we can jump ahead to here. I think it's also worth noting that the work we've done with Apollo has been really useful, and we've already taken $20 million off the cost of the project. So we have delivered some savings against that original budget. And as I said before, the mix of pools is supplemented with those revenue generating elements, including the gym, the cafe, that help offset the cost. So effectively what we think very firmly is that the plan we have now, that preferred option, that option 3, gives you the widest benefits for the best possible cost over the whole of life of the asset. So thinking about that kind of 30 years. And so now we need to add that next foundational building block in our aquatic network and sports facility in general, and it must drive the most use in the most cost-effective way. The cost is significant, and there's no getting away from that. These buildings are large, bespoke, and they have many features that are specific to aquatic centres, as we heard about in terms of ventilation, the pools, the plant rooms, all of those things. I can tell you that the moisture in the air inside those facilities, being chlorinated and moist, is not good with electric equipment as well, so it has to be continuously replaced. And so we can't afford to cut corners on it. We don't want to have those false economies on things. As I think Councillor Kurak referred to, we have had some challenges at Baywave over the years, For example, having to go back and replace all the water piping in the walls because it was done with a more cost-effective option at the time, but we had to pay for it later. So the facility's been designed and focused around being functional, and we'll make sure that it looks good, but we don't expect it, and we're not setting out to win any architectural awards. That's not what the aim of the game is. It's about delivering the best possible value to the community in the short term and the long term. It's a significant financial commitment, we understand that, but we can't keep holding off. And a decision on this kind of fully early next year will still only deliver a pool probably sometime around 2028. So we've got to wait for that, and we'll do our best, but it may not be viable to keep the existing memorial pool alive that long. That's the state that it's at. So the funding that's being requested today allows us to keep moving forward and keep planning, keeps our options open around whether it's option 1, 2, 3 or 4. So really appreciative of your consideration of this at this point in time.
Thank you. I have a question. Was there any work done on putting a pool at the site of the current pool?
Yeah, I think that was considered at the time, and the theory was that if you built in a different location, then you could keep the existing pool going as long as you can and not be down on that when the network's already pretty tight on space.
But that was sort of as far as you went?
Yes, because the original plan was to have the bigger hub with courts and an aquatic centre in the same location to replace the Queen Elizabeth Youth Centre and the memorial pool. So now with the courts moving up to Cameron Road, that means that that's where the pool has been slated for, and that's the best location on the site as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Taylor?
Sorry, just following on from the Mayor's question there. What's designated to happen where Memorial Park is currently placed? What does that become?
The pool?
Yeah, where the pool is now.
That's part of that master plan that has been circulated. So the intention is that the mini golf can be redeveloped and extended, and then there's more car parking that extends into enabling better youth and play space on the other side of the park. So it's all integrated with how the park can work well with the aquatic centre and providing better connections from road to road as well for pedestrians and through the car park and the park as a whole.
Councillor Schooler.
So just, I've already asked, but the option of the fitness centre was the lowest priority, I think, in the survey, which we haven't talked about yet. So I don't like the fact we've got 4 options, but none of them are saying no fitness centre, and I think it's important that we actually do know what base, because putting base and spa makes me a bit nervous that we're at council providing a spa, which probably is a bit more than it's heated facilities, right? But so just knowing what the base is very specifically. Is that a cafe as well?
Yes, it is, and that we could do a bit more work on that. But I guess if I could just add a point that it's widely understood within the industry that to have a pool to cost the minimum amount it can to run, a fitness centre and a good learn to swim program and ability to do good learn to swim is what will keep the cost at a...
Learn to swim, absolutely.
Yeah.
So don't.
Yeah.
I think 2 of you have put those in together, and I learn to swim, absolutely, but that's quite different than a fitness centre, because I think fitness centres around Tauranga, there's quite a lot of them. They're privately run, other than perhaps 2 we run with Bay Venue. So to me, it's starting to indulge in things that are, we've got a limited budget, limited funding, and I'd like to say what are the things that we, as Tauranga Council, we do provide to the people of Tauranga, and extending our scope into things that quite work well as privately run, to me, is that when we've got no money to do it, is starting to question it. So I would like to see the numbers of how much extra cost that is for the space it takes, and the revenue you're suggesting it generates, and how much impact that has.
Councillor Kura.
Yeah, just on the same topic, over the years of my experience on council and Baywave and the facility there, the gym, there's been the private sector really sort of resent the competition there because firstly there's a competitive advantage because it's packaged with the pool and you offer, the offering from the gym includes some pool access at a discounted rate, I understand. And also simply the overall fact that the public sector is competing with the private sector. How has that been and how do you intend to handle that moving forward with this proposal?
We have a local competition policy which says that we will try to do any of those other things, and this includes catering, AV services, gyms, where it's associated with our facilities or organisations that we might partner with, such as council. So we try and limit what we do there. I think though that what you have to understand is that if we weren't going to run that gym, then there would be a significant extra subsidy that would be required from council and from ratepayers, because the cost of doing the commercial activities that we do at Bay Venues as a CCO offsets the cost of running the facilities. So that's the model that we have.
What that figure is for Bayway, the gym alone, offsetting the ratepayer cost?
I'd need to come back to you on that.
Councillor
It is significant.
Crowther.
Yeah, in the original business case, it showed that the fitness centre made a slight surplus, 0.1% of annual rates equivalent, if you don't include depreciation and interest. And yet we've heard that the cost of the facility depends on a number of factors, but includes what's included in it. I'm struggling to understand why there's no depreciation and no interest that can be attributed to a fitness centre which takes up space and requires a larger footprint. And I believe we can't get a development contribution for that. But why we can't attribute that cost to the fitness centre, in which case it would make a significant loss.
Within Bay Venues, we've started reporting on the interest and depreciation costs against our commercial activities, and knowing that we need to cover that within our operating cost. So we would do that at the new Memorial Park facility, but yeah, it may not have been picked up that way in the business case at this stage.
Do you have a way of tracking the sort of additional revenue of gym goers that they then you go and access the pool or whatever?
Yeah, we obviously track our membership, and I think we're running about 2,400 members across our gyms. So, and we can tell you which types of memberships they are, whether they're just gym or whether they're gym and swim. So we can break that down. Yes.
So you have that would be helpful. So you have a gym and swim, but like people that go to the gym and then maybe go for a swim afterwards, or that's not.
We probably wouldn't necessarily pick that up if they're a gym member and then choose to pay in a single adult entry for a swim. No, they generally will buy a membership, which works that way.
All right. Is there any other questions?
Is the survey going to be spoken to? Survey results?
Yeah, shall we?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Kayla.
Kia ora koutou again. So I just want to draw your attention, I think you will have all read the survey results, both interim and the updated ones by now, but just a few of the key takeaways. We did receive a really high level of response rate on the survey. I think a big part of that was because we used the rates database for the first time, so that went out to around 60,000 people, plus our engagement platform database, Korera Mai, which is another 9,000, so there could be some duplication across that. And so with getting just over 5,000 responses, it was a lot higher than we've experienced before. Some clear results coming through, which I'll just highlight a few of those and then open up for questions. Definitely overwhelming support for the new Aquatic Centre at Memorial Park. And 71% of all those responding supporting the 80 to 105 million spend. The bulk of those respondees were existing pool users, so about 3/4 were those who were using the pool, one of our pool facilities already. However, the quarter who are not pool users, still the bulk of those, with just over around 54%, were also wanting some new aquatic facilities. In terms of the ranking questions, when you looked at the 11 different options that people could rank highest to lowest, Learn to Swim was the one that was came up on top, the 50-metre pool featuring really heavily in those answers too. The other question that we were surveying through this process was asking what people might want to do with any extra money that was not spent, that was originally planned for in the long-term plan on the pool. The overwhelming response there, especially among those who were not supportive of the new facility, was to bring back reduced debt levels, but also with those who did support the facility, 44% of those, again the highest percentage, also wanted to reduce debt. So I'll open up for questions that you might have around the survey, the results, or the process.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, and it's great to use the database to get a good spread of responses. Just a question around what controls were in place to prevent people from voting multiple times. I recall back in 2016 there was a certain mayoral candidate who got twice as many poll votes as anyone else and ended up finishing 5th.
Good question. So, because we were emailing predominantly, I mean, we did share it through social channels and through the engagement database, but because our, I guess, main channel we were using was to go out to the ratepayer database, we didn't limit the amount of times people could respond because we wanted it to be open to more than one member of the family. So there could be more than one response coming from that IP address. But the premise behind that is that you are letting more than just one person from the household respond if they chose to.
Yep.
Looking at average family size these days, is there any controls around limiting the number of responses if there was, like, say, 30 or 100 from the same IP address? I mean it's hard because you've got say 500 people who may share the same IP address in council and may have, you know, as members of the public, totally entitled to share their views, but is it?
Yeah, absolutely. On this survey, there was not. It is something that we could look at for future surveys. I guess, yes, organisations, that can be tricky because they do share that same IP address. But yeah, I don't think there was anything of huge amounts of concern on this survey, but it's something that we can look into for future ones.
Last one. Thank you. Would it be very easy to retrieve the number of multiple votes per IP address just for us to see, or is that a hard thing to sort of dig out?
Yeah, no, we can certainly provide that.
Thank you.
I understand you may have already done that, and there wasn't sort of any, you know, thousands of any from Bay Venues, for example.
Too busy to do that. Too busy. Yes.
Yeah, we have got that data, so we can get it to you very quickly, Councillor Morris.
But there wasn't anything of concern.
But there wasn't anything too alarming.
Yeah, no, that's great. Councillor Curran.
In terms of the findings, 50-metre pool, what's the conclusion on that? In terms of the result. So, like I had a friend who went on there, and she is the 50-metre pool supporter and wanted to express a view, but got kicked off halfway through the process. Actually, that's another question. What caused that? And you're aware of some submitters being sort of flipped off due to demand or whatever caused that. Actually, it's quite disappointing.
Yeah, look, with surveys of this scale, unfortunately, there are glitches sometimes. I think when we looked at the overall results, about 1% of people contacted us to say there was an issue with the functionality when they were filling it out. We did also go at one point, just after the survey was launched, and make some of the instructions a little bit clearer in terms of those kind of dragging down the tiles to order those. And we did have some comments that came through afterwards via email or via CCMs, just to kind of outline what some of those issues had been. But I would say overall it was a very small percentage in terms of the people who have contacted us afterwards. 50-metre pool was definitely, as the results show, a facility that people were interested in, that featured really highly in the top rankings.
Councillor Baker. Oh, sorry, Councillor Deputy Mayor Scholar.
Kia ora. Cool is. I just noticed that in the age groups, our 1% for under 18. And I just know with other stuff with our vital updates, council did a good job at ensuring that either kids or rangatahi voice was heard. How are we going to, with the success of this current survey approach, how are we going to ensure that young people or kids' voices are heard, especially for a facility of this nature, moving forward?
Yeah, really relevant question. And just to acknowledge, I guess, that the channels that we did use for this survey will skew a little bit into the older demographic. The ratepayer database, that's homeowners, so we know that people are likely to be a little bit older. Also through Facebook, it's a similar situation. What we would ordinarily do, and when we have, I guess, that lead-in time, which is a little bit greater, we will try and target different platforms where we know that young people are. So for the election campaign, for example, where we knew that we were kind of underrepresented often within that young people vote, then we will go onto platforms more like Instagram, Spotify and things to try and target them. I know Bay Venues went and shared the survey through their polls and their user groups as well. So I'd say if a bit more time, then we definitely go and try and target those demographics more. With this one, we were really just trying to get a pulse check as quickly as we could to meet the timeline of this meeting.
Totally respect that. Sorry, just final question. Do we have the capacity in-house to do that well?
As in targeting?
Yeah, connectivity with our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's different ways you can do that. As you know, we've got a community development team who do some awesome work reaching out with rangatahi directly. But also when we look at our paid marketing campaigns, we go and put specific money behind, channels that we know register with young people more.
Cool. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Scholar.
Thank you. So you talked about the top two preferences and they're quite a higher percentage. Can you just share the bottom two in terms of priority and how much less priority were they than the top ones?
So the bottom two, as I said here, the gym and the manu pool. I guess what I would say there in terms of the way we structured that question in the ranking, one of the benefits is it's kind of a fun way for people to engage, and so it probably helped drive up engagement numbers. But one of the disadvantages are that you don't get that relativity. So when people are sometimes asking to kind of rank things, especially with a lot of number, people might really, really love the top two, but they might not. They might be kind of ambivalent. So it can be a little bit difficult to draw really accurate insights when you have a long list of different things, because you just don't know how much people really love something or really don't, because they're kind of forced to rank them. If that makes sense. If not, I'll ask my insights guru to explain a little bit better.
No, it was just really to get we heard the top ones were
sure.
the learn to swim in 50 metres, and it's important, I think, that we know that the gym was in Manu Pool were down a lot less.
Yeah,
Briefly. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, just commenting on that. I think with Councillor Baker's comments about less young people, Manu Pool probably would have come up the list quite a bit.
Councillor Crowley.
Yeah, thanks.
Gym wouldn't it?
On page 4, where it talks about other suggestions were provided and grouped into features, and there were 929, which was 37%, saying 50-metre pool. Were those numbers added into the 50-metre pool and the above, or were they on top of the request for 50-metre pool?
So not all respondees filled out that section where they asked if they wanted to add on anything. So those numbers don't get added because that question was already asked.
Right, okay.
So
So
it's-
basically, if we're looking for a sum, we'd have to add the ones who tick 50-metre pool, and we'd have to add the other people.
No, because they've probably already ticked
Oh, they
50-metre
probably
pool,
already
and they just wanted to reinforce that point
I see.
potentially by adding it into the written option
Right,
as
so
well.
they really like it.
Well, you don't know, but quite possibly, if you're really passionate, you're probably going to put it both places.
Need a heat map next time to tell us how much I love it. Councillor Guru.
Now, just on that 50-metre pool, we heard earlier that nationally Sport New Zealand was not that supportive. That would be in the New Zealand context, I imagine, because pointing out there are in the network adequate number. But in the local context, what's the message there from Sport and others in that local context?
So whilst it's a national strategy, the point that they're making is nationally every city or municipal town has the same issue of being short in relaxation, leisure, hydrotherapy and learn to swim, and that's what we see in our network. So yes, it's a national strategy, but it applies in all of the places across New Zealand. So they're saying that they support, I guess, more what we're proposing as opposed to another 50-metre pool that doesn't fill the gaps that any community would need to be able to achieve what they need for the majority of their people. Does that make
But more focusing on the local input from the experts.
Yeah. So Sport Bay of Plenty spoke on Monday, very much of the same view that we need to be catering for all those other things that we've mentioned. I think the 50-metre conversation comes up a lot from those people that do need it for their particular sport or for that elite outcome, and that's what I touched on a little bit around. There's a small percentage of our community that is in that elite high performance stage, and that's great, and we want to support them as much as we can, but the majority of our community falls into needing all those other spaces in an aquatic centre.
Just to add to that, I think the Sport New Zealand have put a letter through, and with that there's a fact sheet which sits at the back which explains their rationale behind the 50-metre versus 25-metre pool conversation, and I think that's really worth having a glance through because it provides a lot of answers to some of these questions.
All right, I think we're done with questions. So thank you everyone for your input and answering the questions. I'd just like to make a special thank you to Kaylee for getting that up and running, that survey, and getting those results. I think it was awesome to be able to move so quickly, understand the views of our people, and I thank you to all our people that contributed to that survey, because having such a great response rate, and people may not feel that 5,292 respondents is a large number of our population, but in context of input to what normal engagement and feedback is, it is a big number, and it gives us some very valuable insights into what our community needs. I guess just to highlight that, I think it was resounding from that survey that we need more aquatic facilities. It was also resounding, that there was, there was actually a want to commit to, having a pool at Memorial Park. So, those were really valuable feedback, and on the back of that, I very much agree that and want to commit to a pool or aquatic facilities at Memorial Park. I don't disagree with the design. I think what we've been delivered is really really good and a really good step in the right direction. So I thank you for everyone for your work so far. Interesting, I guess, was that 50-metre pool, and that shone out very highly. And personally, I support a 50-metre pool, but I guess after listening to a lot of the conversations, a lot of the input that we have had, I think we need to separate a 50-metre pool from a leisure facility, because I think what we've overwhelmingly heard is that a 50-metre pool doesn't necessarily fit into a leisure centre, I guess, if you like to put it as simply as that. And so I think my overall direction is we hear that we need a 50-metre pool, and I think a city our size deserves a 50-metre pool, but we should potentially look at an option to do that at a different facility to the Memorial Park Aquatic Centre. That is obviously my personal view. I guess and as I said, I actually support this design. I think it looks good. Where I'm uncomfortable is 80 to 105 million the right number, and I am struggling to know. I just purely I just do not know. And it is a huge commitment of ratepayer money. It is huge decision for this council to commit to that sort of money, and this council's priorities is around value for money, and I don't know whether this offers value. So I guess on the back of that, I recommend or move that we have an alternative motion that maybe we could put up. Now, I just want to explain this to people. So what this is effectively trying to do, and we may need to get this checked that in my words is actually getting across, is that we want to commit to building aquatic facility at Memorial Park, and we don't want to scrap all the work we've done. As I said, I think the design is fantastic. What we want to do is just pause where we are right now, continue to pause, which we have been for the last few months, and just go and do a little bit more work, and that is leaning on our user groups, understanding that aquatic network, the strategy, where people think, as I said, I think it's come through very loud and clear, we need a 50-metre pool. So where would that fit potentially if it wasn't built at Memorial Park? Obviously, I know Glenn's got some support for the Otomoto pool, and I think we do need to look at that as part of this review as to how the whole network operates. But I think we kind of pause. We say this is our base case. Let's go and do some work. Find out whether the number does stack up, and if it does, let's continue. Now, I understand with that there is risks. Obviously we've got a team that are currently going through this, and we may get delays. I also believe it's a very good time right now to be committing to a construction project. When potentially contractors are struggling for work and we can get better prices. But I still, at the end of it, I agree that in my mind, before I could commit to this, I want to be sure that we just are comfortable that this is the right number. And I think I would also like to go and explore a few more external funding options to see if there's others that maybe wish to contribute to this, and you know, that may answer the question that this burden is not as large as you know, committing 100 and up to 105 million by ourselves. So that, I guess, is the overall where I sit. So, you know, I would like to move that motion, and I'd call for a seconder if that is supported. So Councillor Taylor will second that motion. Councillor Taylor, would you like to talk to it?
I look at the design and the work that's gone into it, and I think it's given us a good vision of what this could be for the city. I am mindful that it's a large amount of money, but I also am mindful that we've got a dearth of facilities around the place, and we need to probably to commit to some of the things that the commissioners have put in front of us, but obviously the money has to be right. So I'm really keen that we do look at how we pay for this in the future. Are we charging the right amount for entry? That sort of stuff, making sure that the users of these facilities are paying their part. So, yeah, supportive of the idea.
We've got a new Councillor Schuller.
Yeah, I understand and in principle support. I suppose from the perspective of hearing what the experts have said today about the leisure pool and the separation, I suppose, between structured swimming or performance pools, I understand, and that came through at the start of this meeting earlier in the week as well. I suppose for me, part of if this is the process that we follow through and understanding the need, sort of hear Sport or Swim or Sport New Zealand saying New Zealand doesn't need any more 50-metre pools, but Tauranga does. That's pretty clear to me. And Moss Burmester, I think on Monday, said talking about an and solution. So I suppose for me, if we are to look to get in this line and look at see if there are ways to still provide an impressive aquatic facility to support those needs as described today, and we were able to find a few more dollars of savings out of it, that we would look quickly to find a way to deliver a 50-metre pool with that money saved, rather than retiring debt, would be my view. Thank you.
Councillor Scholar.
Thank you. I think this motion does cover off some of the concerns that we have had, that I have had. We do need to be diligent in terms of big chunks of ratepayer money. I think this is saying I definitely support an aquatic centre. I definitely support it being at Memorial Park. I agree with Councillor Schuller in terms of we do need to understand what the other, where we might be able to fund a 50-metre pool, because that is what our community, our people said they did want. I think that it's really important. As I have said, I do want to know what basic does mean, and I would like those numbers back in terms of the fitness centre. And my only suggestion is that perhaps some time frames in there might be a good addition, because at the moment I don't want this to be something we're looking at in a year's time. So I think this should be part of what we're looking at when we're looking at the budget for next year, and so I'd like some time frames in there if we could.
Probably, I'm not sure, maybe lean on maybe staff as to what
as soon as possible.
Yeah, but is it and I'm just very unsure as to if we want to explore this. Is it a 1 month thing? Is it a 3 month thing? Is it a 6 month thing?
Through your worship, I think we will be in a position by early next year to report back, and then that could be part of a consideration, if necessary, of what could be included in the annual plan, if anything. So it probably needs to be, if there is to be any funding made available to advance either this or another design or other options, then you could make a decision to include some funding in the annual plan to commence that process.
Yeah.
Well, this does include the 2.2.
Yeah, and I don't know, that 2.2 was a figure that was specifically referenced to the design feasibility report, and so I don't know that the work required would be anywhere near 2.2 million to do the piece of work.
We hope it's not.
Yeah, all right. We can report back on what that cost might be, but I guess there's some license there to commence some work to understand what the future looks like.
Yeah, I think we maybe add in then to report back at the first meeting in 2025. The first council meeting, or actually, we could go back to the project planning and monitoring. Yeah, so maybe in that one they could.
It's not. That wouldn't be till about March.
All right, maybe we go to the first council meeting.
Like
we could take that bit out then. Yeah.
So can we put that in? We've just changed that to the first council. Yeah.
And are you happy with that, Councillor Taylor? Yeah. Councillor Baker.
Can I foreshadow perhaps in addition to that
petition?
And just kind of reflecting on the bigger journey we've undertaken as an organisation from the time of the Commission with this kaupapa through to us now. There's been a lot of changes with this particular project and also a lot of learnings I think we can take from it. Just thinking off the top of my head, we had the 20 mil plus cut almost within a week or overnight. We've had community voice done differently. We've done our own engagement and stuff on this process to get to the point that we had in the original design. But yet we've gone and done this different engagement process. There's been different powers across the spectrum to make different decisions on this work. Like there's so much gone into it for us to kind of be starting from scratch in a way, not entirely, but in a way. And I think it's really important that we have a robust, honest report on the entire learnings, because we might end up back right where the organisation started when this came to us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well then, if it ends up there, which I hope it doesn't, that what's the opportunity loss that we've put the organisation through to get back to where we may have originally got? These are all the questions I have in my head that I think, for our sake and being accountable to our people, but also responding to the needs that have come through the survey and stuff, that we have some sort of report on this whole process to really uncover and understand the learnings. So moving forward, when it comes to future big decisions for our city, perhaps some of them are things that the Commission have tabled for us for the city, that we can we've got something meaningful to measure against. Does that make sense?
I think that's very valid, and I guess the way I see it is we're not actually starting from scratch. What we're saying is we have an option, and this is a good option, and we thank Apollo especially for, taking a project that effectively, for me, in my eyes, was unaffordable at $124 million, and they've put it in a realm that potentially I'm prepared to continue with. I just feel like I want a little bit more. I don't know what a pool costs, and it's sort of going back and saying, let's have a look at some other ideas, and if that sort of comes out on top, let's progress with what we've got. So I guess as part of that, in my mind, and I'm not sure if you agree, but if we get back to that, we know, that's in itself that the process was good and robust. If we come out with something completely different.
And if it's on paper, then we've got a tangible matrix or standard to measure up against moving forward for other big decisions we can make. Because with respect, we've mentioned it before, like a common quote that's come across is, this is a lesson learned. Like, let's put some of that stuff on paper so we can keep ourselves and the community accountable, keep everyone accountable to what we're doing. But yeah, I don't know if that's emotion or just normal practice, but
yeah, well,
there's some big learnings that we need to unravel and understand moving forward, I think. Someone can word that eloquently.
Yeah.
I don't know where we go with that.
Yeah, sorry.
Through you, Worship, just for point of clarification, when we're considering the various options for Memorial Park, I sense through conversation today that we need to understand what the opportunities are across the wider network, including a 50-metre pool and arguably what location a 50-metre pool might be best suited and where, and likewise the opportunity for Otamotai and reporting back on the opportunity to keep that in service and for what period of time. I think because that sort of rounds off, if we focus just on Memorial, I think the conversation just naturally tends to go wider, and so would that be helpful?
Yeah, well, I think that's part. Oh, sorry, that's part of that. Engagement on the aquatic strategy within the sub-region, and potentially that's also a conversation taking into account Western Bay. To understand if there's a, we can use, or build something that actually creates the overall network, and I think in that, everything I've heard, and I'm very comfortable with, we're doing the right thing at Memorial Park. So that's sort of a part of a strategy. We've got something there, and what goes in around that. So yeah, that's I guess my views on it. But yeah, there's a couple of bits, I guess, is looking at overall strategy. That's kind of a little bit separate to Memorial Pool. The Memorial Pool is much more specialised in, what are we building? Like, is this what we're building, or is there another solution? I guess. But I guess the idea, in an ideal world, we get back to this, and we delay ourselves a few months and continue on, with the current project, because that means that we are getting value for money, and that's that's I guess what's underpinning this. What else? Councillor Schooler.
Was I allowed to supplement? So I just think it would be having determined the principles of how we look at investment of ratepayer funds yesterday. It would be the report would be really good, just to make sure we go through those principles in terms of what this looks like for us.
Anyone else? Councillor Roseboom.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to thank staff for all the efforts. I have read an amazing lengthy reports on the pool complex, and like the Mayor, I like his proposed motion, and I do support it as it is. I'd also like to thank all of the community that is here at the public forum earlier in the week. It displayed a very large breadth of knowledge within the city that could help us build a pool in the future. Also support the city's proposal around extending the report to include a wider network study of how we can grow our aquatic facilities across Tauranga. The positionings of the pools will pretty much be determined by where they can fit best to service the people of Tauranga. My own personal view is I love the concept of the plan, I love the design, but like the Mayor, it's a cost issue, how we get best value for the people of Tauranga, given a lot of them are still struggling with their daily lives. As a council, we have a duty of care to provide sporting needs. This facility doesn't, in my mind, fit to a sport need, it's a leisure need. So we've got to be very careful that we're targeting the needs of the people to meet sports needs versus leisure needs. But that aside, I definitely, I'll say it again, I like the design of the Memorial Park pool, and if I can, like the Mayor, get to a point where the price value meets what I think is appropriate for the project, I will definitely support it. And I also would like to thank the Mayor for his comments around the Otamotai pool. I believe that needs to be kept and supported for as long as we can. Thank you.
Which leads, I understand Councillor Crowther may have an amendment.
Oh, well, I'll speak to the motion.
Okay, you'll speak to the motion. And
yeah, thank you. So I mean, I've talked for the last year, as some of the staff and Bay venues know, with a number of stakeholders, and I've seen all the hard work that's gone in. I do think we've got a good aquatic strategy. I think it's based on evidence. I think there's a lot of good things to like about it. I think the gap in it is that we are operating within a paradigm that councils operate within. And I think we can learn, as we heard from some of the presenters the other day, from taking a little bit more of an innovative approach. So I do support an aquatic centre at Memorial Park. I think the common ground between Council Bay venues and stakeholders is that they think it needs to focus on recreational use. So I support the motion, and I support the idea that a 50-metre pool, if it goes ahead, should be separate. I guess the cost is the big thing for me. The original cost was justified, well, attempted to be justified by shutting down Otamortai Pool and you know, condensing the swimming club evolution into the Memorial Park complex. You know, I've heard mixed views from within that club, and I think they were not given the option to retain Otamortai Pool, or not just they, but the city wasn't, to have a scaled-back Memorial Aquatic proposal, and to add another facility. Councillor Morris will be pleased to know, in Papamoa East.
Great.
And so I think those should definitely be on the table, and they are on the table in terms of our strategy. It's just they weren't on the table when it came to deciding what to invest in Memorial Aquatic Centre. And I think that's, in my view, where we went wrong. We didn't set a budget and then go out and get a design. We got a design that set a budget. And I think that's where the private sector would probably have a different approach. And in my view, although I would love everything at Memorial Park and I love everything everywhere in the city, you know, I don't think we can afford the expensive operating costs of some of the outdoor pools which are not used as much all year round, the bomb pool, etc. I think we do have to focus on a needs basis rather than a wants basis. And so I think a couple of pools there indoors with a nice design, but a scaled back design would be what I would see the common ground is. And I think, you know, in my view, that we could certainly retain Otamortai Pool or look at something there and put some money towards a 50-metre pool and a Papamoa pool from those savings, and that's where I'll be pleased to go. So I've sent an amendment, a proposed K, which is to request a report be brought back to the first council meeting in 2025 about the Otamortai Pool geotechnical report, with a decision to be made at that meeting about whether to add Otamortai Pool maintenance and operating expenditure back into the full, words to this effect, I think I might have tweaked it when I sent it to you, Cole, back into the 10 years of the long-term plan. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so yeah, so I'll put that on the table and have to speak to that.
Second.
Sorry, Paul, can we just have a clarification? Because we can put something in the annual plan, but maybe not the long-term plan?
That's correct. You can only do it for that year. You can pass a resolution to signal to put it into future annual plans, but we can't put it in at that time.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to word it.
Okay.
I'm happy to take that. I guess I want to get my fellow councillors on the hook, whatever the wording needs to be.
Okay, is anyone...
I'd like to speak to it.
We don't know what year. I'll pick to start.
Can I just add, you know, that's subject to us getting the geocheck report and to us in time for that. So we can certainly make our best endeavours, but we do need to wait until.
So it might take longer.
I think it's been pushed out. Is that right?
Yeah, we just
brought back the first council meeting.
Get it.
Or maybe
Early
could we add early 25 instead of the first? Yeah.
Through you, Your Worship, we can certainly aim to get it as soon as possible. But
Yeah. Councillor Morris. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
I guess my thinking behind this is that the ratepayer subsidy to operate the pools at the moment is Otamortai is just under $500,000 a year, and Greaton just over $500,000 a year plus the renewals, according to the council figures I've been provided. And the Memorial Aquatic Centre, as it currently stands, including all the other costs is 10 to 12 million a year. So we're talking 3 to 4% of people's rates per year for one pool complex. And I don't think ratepayers who are low income tenants, low income homeowners can afford to have a series of aquatic centres that cost for each one adds another 3 to 4% onto the rates bill. We need 4 of them ideally, plus in a 50-metre pool if we're doing that, so that's 5. So we're talking a 20% increase potentially in rates. If there's any budget blowout, it would go to about 20% just to fund our aquatic centres. And I don't think we can afford that. I think we have to actually be smarter about this, and we have to scale it. And I'm not talking about, I think in a way it was a bit unfortunate probably to use the tin shed, but I absolutely support the sentiment of designing for value, and I think we need to just get the balance right. I agree with the consultant we heard who was suggesting that we need to do something nice at Memorial. I'm not thinking an ugly little building like a garden shed, but I am thinking we have to design according to what some of New Zealand's leading architects, 2 of them, have told me that they can design things a lot cheaper if the specs are given to them the right way around. So I think there is potential for savings. So in my view, we need to end up with a pool in Otumotai, whether we have to maintain it better, upgrade it, or rebuild it if necessary, because that's where the catchment is. And you heard that the other day from people from Sport Player Plenty, from Greg, from Liz Van Weerly. These people know where the demand is. And we end up, we have to end up with a pool in Papamoa and cover the city. So in my view, that's the only way forward. We can't afford the expensive option. We do have to get a good outcome. And I guess for me, it comes down to something like a fitness centre. We are actually losing money on it. We can't afford to subsidise, use ratepayer money to subsidise a fitness centre, which doesn't cover its own costs, according to the business case. It quite clearly doesn't. And therefore, we're actually subsidising it and ultimately preventing Otumotai from having a pool. And I don't think that's at all appropriate.
Councillor,
Speaking to the amendment.
yeah, we're talking to the amendment. Yeah, Councillor Morris.
Reserve.
Okay. I don't support the amendment. There's already basically a resolution on the table to bring back a report for the Otumotai pool that we heard today. This has nothing to do, in my mind, with the Memorial pool, and also from the Memorial pool perspective, where as part of the substantive resolution, we're already saying we're going to do a full review of the aquatic strategy, and from that we'll know whether this plays a part in that. I personally don't see a need for this amendment. Is there anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Curran.
Could I just ask staff what the advantages with this particular amendment in terms of adding to the bigger picture of the resolution? But as the Mayor stated, I think you're struggling to see how this fits.
Well, the way the wording is written at the moment, it's another report on top of the report that's already been asked for, on top of another report that's in the original amendment. So somehow I think we need to come back with a consolidated view, a strategic paper on the aquatics network, and that's referred to, I think, in one of the earlier changes, and secondly, specifically on what the recommended option is after having explored further options for Memorial Park. I think we need to be able to come back with a solution that understands the desire for a 50 metre at some stage, the desire, I believe, to try and keep Otumotai going, and the desire to do something at Memorial that meets the community's needs. All within sort of a limited budget. But timing is important too, I think. I mean, We need. Yeah, well, I think it's important to understand there is only so much money. We know and understand that, and that if it's a strategy that we want to put in place, you've seen that the first piece of work on this pool in particular, I think, was noted as 2016. And so if we start looking at other pools in other areas, I don't anticipate we'll be building those pools anytime soon, and so we need to actually understand what an investment in the aquatic network looks like over the next 10 years and commit to it.
Councillor Kura.
Yeah, I do support the principle, Councillor Crowther, but I think we need to probably keep it in the overall context of what we're looking at here. I also support retaining the motor pool. I think it's sensible when we look at the overall value for money proposition, and I really appreciate the united view this council has around achieving that value of money, value for monies, and certainly retaining the pool to me provides that larger network value for money. But we'll definitely see where we get to in terms of the final decisions. But I'm pretty confident that we'll end up keeping it. So in principle, I do support it, but I won't support this resolution as I think it sort of fits into the package that's already there. Resolution.
Does anyone else like to speak to it? Therefore, I put the amendment. Oh, sorry, Councillor Morris. Yep, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I will support my colleague in this because he is representing his community, and that's part of our role as advocacy. And so I support him not just for that reason, but I think, notwithstanding, and I wouldn't seek to disagree with the Chief Executive's understanding of the resolutions, but it doesn't look specific in terms of a report back around the wider network. It seems more tied to memorial. So I think that the amendment is more specific, that it is looking at one factor in the wider network. And for the second reason why I would support it is the entire Memorial Park Aquatic Centre proposal rested on the closure of Utamutai. That's what really got it over the line in terms of stacking up. So they are linked. We can unlink them. I mean, it's not a major, but I do support my colleague because he is advocating for its community, and that's really important around this table. And I also reserve my ability at the Mayor's discretion to speak to the substantive motion, where I may argue against myself.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Crowther, would you like to have a last say? Sorry, you don't get a right of reply being an amendment.
Yeah, take it.
Just put the amendment.
So I'll just put the amendment to Council, and that is request a report to be brought back to Council meeting in early 2025 about the Utamutai Pool geotechnical report, with a decision to be made at that meeting about whether to add Utamutai Pool maintenance and operating expenditure into the draft annual plan and potentially future years of the long-term plan. I ask all those in favour.
Aye.
Those opposed.
Please raise your hands. So is
In favour of it now?
Sorry, this is opposed. Sorry.
So
All those.
everyone's opposed.
Sorry. We'll do hands. So all those in favour. Aye.
It's just can you call it out? Just
Correct.
Morris.
Morris and Crowther. Those opposed. That's
Everybody else.
Councillor Schuler,
Yeah.
Drysdale, Baker, Schooler, Roseboom, Taylor. That amendment is unsuccessful, so we'll go back to the substantive motion, and we'll hear what Mr. Papamoa has to talk against himself.
Look, thank you, Mayor. And I do want to acknowledge the work that the Tauranga City Council staff and contractors have done over the last few years on this project. And I know that there will be some level of disappointment today as a result of the resolutions on the table. However, when I reflect on Monday's agenda and the resident survey that is in there in the community committee. It's pretty sober reading, and if I can just quote some of the sentiments and key issues that have come out of that report, because I think it is relevant to what we're discussing here today. Pleasingly, it is a scientific survey, but pleasingly swimming pools are mentioned in that survey. And there's positive feedback on existing pools like Baywave, but concerns about overcrowding and the need for more pools. So I think that does a scientific survey reflect the informal survey we did over the last few weeks. So that's positive. The rest of the resident survey, I'm afraid, is very sobering, and we've got a lot of work to do to rebuild the trust and confidence of our community, and that trust and confidence remains at a very low level, in the danger zone, in fact, as I would characterise it. I'm hoping, against hope, that it's a bit of a hangover from previous decision makers, and there is some level of cautious optimism in that report, but I think that the resolutions on the table here do reflect some of the concern that the community has about costs, and it's real. One of the key takeouts is that there's disappointment and frustration, particularly regarding financial management and infrastructure projects at council. And with regard to prudent spending, respondents emphasise the need for council to use funds wisely, focusing on essential services, avoiding unnecessary expenditure, and they want to see clear return for investment on all projects. And value for money, and I'm pleased that that's in motion or resolution E. Residents say, with regard to value for money, there's a strong sentiment that the community is not receiving good value for money paid in rates. And congestion, of course, featured again. So I just wanted to emphasise that point I made the other day. So we've got work to do. I think that this is a response to what we all feel our community is telling us. I think that it is prudent to pause now and to reevaluate options to deliver greater value for our community. Some folk, that will be upsetting to some folks, but we are where we are. And I would like to end my speech with a statement I gave, or a paraphrase of a statement I gave to my then fiancée 21 years ago. With regard to aquatic facilities, it's not what the outside looks like, it's the inside that counts. And I think I love mono-pitch roofs and four walls. If we can deliver better value for money for our residents, then we will be doing good work to turn around the current perception of a lack of value for money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morris. Very, very touching words there. Is anyone else? Councillor Kurak.
As I said before, I really commend our Mayor for taking this approach and leading with these resolutions to drive for value for money. It's refreshing. It's certainly what the city is asking for via what Councillor Morris just expressed regarding the survey. I haven't read that yet, but I can guess what's in there. And it's the constant message that I get, and I'm sure we all get, around affordability. So that's where we need to focus, and I'm glad, as I said before, that we are united as a new council to seek those savings where we can and drive for further savings where it's possible. And in terms of this project, I had a look at the Baywave cost, and that was $19 million at the time. And then I looked at the Stats NZ side to look at the cost inflation, the construction cost index, I think it's called, or they've changed the terminology. And over that period, it was about 80% increase. So, you know, to me, it's stark. that inconsistency with the stat. I've found it hard to believe it's only 80% over that since Baywave was built. Perhaps I looked at the capital cost index and relating to both civil and non-residential construction, and it was about the same, around the 80% over that period of time. So that leads me to be fairly confident that if we do a good job on this, to get a far better result in terms of the overall cost to construct I won't say a world-leading result, but a result that fits the needs of our community. It's something that we would be proud of, because I think it's important as well, but mostly affordable to the user and the ratepayer who's fronting the large portion of it at the moment. You mentioned it between, was it 10, 12 million a year? But we certainly need to trim that back, because I know that it's that value for money that drives that support, or otherwise, around when people pay their rates, is what they get for their rates. If they're paying quite a large amount of rates, but they're getting very little, they resent the fact and think, what's the council doing for us? But if they see a lot of good and people enjoying, and we've got a community that's got great health and well-being, they can sort of understand, because when you pay your rates, it's not just for what you use, but it's what it provides to the community. Witness of the community enjoying life in the city. It's what it's all about. Last night I was watching telly, and it was on there. It was an American city, and it appeared really bleak and offered very little. It was probably in some of those poorer states, but it's important to keep Tauranga attractive. Even for our overall economy, to attract people here, it certainly helps our local economy. That's why I'm a real supporter of housing, and we had Mr. Cooney here also. We need to ensure that we provide the level of housing just to maintain our attractiveness for people who come here, both as a city and as a country. Because as soon as that growth stops, the population growth stops, as I mentioned earlier on this week, we'll be in deeper doo-doos, because our economic growth, GDP, revolves around a constant population increase. New Zealand has been attractive for quite a number of years around attracting growth, but we're starting to become unaffordable. So when people are looking at either shifting to New Zealand, Australia or Canada or wherever they're going, they might not choose New Zealand. And we've noticed, and I read recently, there is a drop-off in immigration, because I think to a large extent that's around our housing unaffordability. So that's the key. But moving away from that and more focusing on what we're talking about, this is all part of that.
Where were we going?
The bigger package. But this all fits in this bigger package, and so that's where I can support a sensible investment into such a facility.
Thank you, Councillor Currick. Does anyone else like to speak? Councillor Taylor, would you like to finish off with anything?
I won't be very long. Really just reiterating that the community has said they want a facility, and I think we have to deliver it, and we have to deliver it at a time frame that isn't 20 years down the track. We need to do it in short time, so let's get on with this and make it happen.
Thank you, and I'll just finish off. Thank you very much for everyone's input. I think we're making a very strong commitment that we are building a aquatic facility at Memorial Park. We are just pausing a current design to look at our options, ensure that we are getting value for money. If that is the case in 3 months' time, we will continue with the current project. And obviously if there's a better option that comes up, then we will look for that. So that is I think very important, that this is going to get delivered. We do risk some delays in this, but I think for the sake of 3 months, to make ourselves and ensure that the people of Tauranga are getting good value for money, it is worth that delay and worth the risk that is involved in that. I'd just like to thank the people of Tauranga, because the results we got in that survey certainly have swayed my position to absolutely reaffirm that we are doing this. I think had we not had such an overwhelming result, views may have been split around the table, but it was very clear that we need new aquatic facilities, and that Memorial Park as a venue is supported. Very, very supportive of that voice. And obviously the other thing that came through was the 50-metre pool. And again, it's not that we aren't listening to that comment. We're just saying that from the information we have at hand, a 50-metre pool in this facility does not make sense, and we're looking at alternatives as part of this, that we do need that in our city, but it may be in a standalone facility. So thank you everyone, and now I put the motion as on the screen to the council, and I ask all those in favour, those opposed, that motion is carried. Thank you very much. So now as we're carrying over from Monday's meeting, we do need to close off with a karakia, and I'll ask Councillor Baker to please close us off. Thank you very much. So I declare the meeting closed at 3:45. Thank you.